Hi, this is Rebecca Gallardo, and before we get started today, I just wanted to make a real quick note. This episode exists because of a listener question, or a listener preference, to be more accurate. April V., I hope that this episode is what you were looking for.
Your story is waiting for you today. Your story has something new to say. But your story will only come out to play when you're alone. Alone. Alone in a room with invisible people.
The following episode may contain swearing. Alone in a Room with Invisible People is brought to you by hollyswritingclasses.com.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Gallardo. Wait, no, I'm not. I'm Holly Lyle. I am, and I made her laugh. I am the guest host of Alone in a Room with Invisible People, and I am here today with previous fanfic writer and now currently aspiring author Rebecca Gallardo. And today's topic is writing fanfic. But before we get into the topic, let's talk about our previous week and what we got done. Becca, over to you.
Well, following up from last week, I did not get very, very much done. I feel like that's okay because I did, speaking with you, and I called the doctor and everything, and I decided not to take that last dose of Clomid and I will have to write in the blog about my Clomid experience because it was horrendous, and I have yet to find somebody else who's had quite an adverse reaction to that drug. But so I was able to stop that, and I've already noticed some improvements, and I intend on starting back into writing on Monday. I know we have a lot left to do with the Halloween special. So I started kind of dipping my toe into that, getting things ready to get to different places, making lists, and then soon enough that everybody, I'm hoping at the very, very latest, Tuesday, everybody should have their contracts.
Cool.
That we've accepted, or unfortunately, the notice that we couldn't accept it.
Right. Yeah, we just had too many, but which is really cool.
Yeah.
but not, as cool as one would hope.
Maybe next time we can just we can do like a two-parter with it, because I'm sure we're going to get more, and maybe we'll have more voices. Sorry about the cat, guys. More voices.
Right.
But yeah, so even though I didn't get anything done, I'm still positive. I still believe that I have time to finish this book before the end of 2018. I will just let the art goal kind of go on the side, because that one was just kind of like a bonus. Like, I would love to have this entire thing cleared out before 2019.
Right.
But that, again, that wasn't like the priority. The second book is.
Yeah.
So how did you do?
Okay, well, let's see. I did pretty well on Dead Man's Party. I got my protagonist scene finished. And I put up on YouTube. The cat just jumped up and grabbed my hand from under the table. Sorry.
Aw.
Yes, he's an idiot. I put up both the first and the second writing videos on YouTube. And I did this because I thought people have this kind of strange idea from watching movies about what it looks like to be a writer who is a professional writer who has been doing this for years and years and years. They have this vision of your hands flying and words just pouring onto the page and magic happening and everything being perfect. And it does not look like that.
I wish so hard that they could have seen you having to do this when we were kids. Mm-hmm. And like a video of you, because it's always this solitary writer in the middle of nowhere, sometimes in a cabin or just, like in their own house, and they're alone and they're lonely, and this is what they're angsty and they're writers. It's like, no, my poor mother had to deal with bratty freaking kids. Even when we were teenagers, there are still their own issues that pop up. And I just wish people could see how many times you got interrupted until Matt kind of laid down the law when you guys got together, which nowadays I really appreciate that he did that for you.
I appreciated that he did it too, because it was, people ask how I can write to a timer. It was one of the things that we were discussing in the forum. Well, how can you write to a timer and have stuff going off every 10 minutes? It just, and
Because you're a mom.
I'm a mom. I had mom. He did, she did, they did, mom.
And we were fighting all the time.
And
too.
you were fighting, and at the point where you guys came home and homeschooled, it was like, you guys got along much better at that point.
We got a lot better, because
Yeah.
you had your own time and we didn't bother you then.
Yes.
But then you had Joe.
Yes.
So
So then you have a baby, and you've got a baby on your lap while you're typing. So that's how I can write to a timer. But I wanted people to see, well, no, it's not this thing where once you go pro and once you have been doing this for years and years, the words just pour out and you never make a mistake, and it's perfect. It's not. And I wanted people to see that. So the first 2 videos are up on YouTube. They're on my channel. And you just look up Holly Lyle on YouTube and you'll find me and you'll find them. And,
when you mentioned that the reason that you wanted to put those up there is to show people that it's not perfect, a big part of the reason that I wanted the podcast to come up here was because, you have a lot of advice to give, and when you talk and everything, it sounds more personable than a lot of times going through your lessons and stuff. And sometimes you say things in a different way than you've written them, so it's clarified. Mm-hmm. But a big thing was because I felt like people would start to understand that you're more of a human being than like a mechanical brain or something like that, because of the way you can dissect stuff. And I don't remember who it was, but somebody in the forums mentioned the other day that it was I don't remember exactly what her words were, but the basic idea was it made her feel better to listen to you stumble on, I believe it was the scene building workshop or building ideas or something like that.
Yeah.
To hear you stumble over trying to create something. And it was like, yes, that right there is like something that is incredibly important to get across to people, because they can still do this. But it's like, I don't know why it's so important to me that everybody understand that this is a skill no matter what level you're at.
Yeah, I think it's humanizing to realize that, well, yeah, I've done a lot of stuff, but I did it by making some really fucking enormous mistakes. Mm-hmm. and learning from my mistakes, and then trying not to do that again, and then making new mistakes. And I've been doing this for over 30 years now. So, that's a lot of mistakes. And, but yes, that's part of it, is just showing people what this process really looks like. So that was Dead Man's Party, and the video is up, and you can see both the first and second scenes of Dead Man's Party going together live, raw, first draft, with all of their mistakes and all of their stumbles and all of that. And then, let's see, I started on lesson 7, and that went pretty well. And I had to go back on lesson 5 because one of the students in the class asked me a question about, she didn't understand how to make the leap from, in lesson 5, from what I was talking about to the worksheets, and how to get to the results that she was supposed to get. So I had a little bit of time on Thursday, and I went and looked through the lesson to see where she was getting stuck, and discovered that I had left out a significant part of the lesson. I just had forgotten to write it. And that's
why you have these as splinter groups.
Yes, because there is such a massive amount of information that's going into this class, and you are head down and you are building a worksheet that solidifies the process. And the cool thing is, because we did the podcast, was it last week where we were building scenes? No, it was a couple of weeks ago. We were building the scenes.
I think it was last week.
Was it last week? Okay.
I think so.
In any case, we were doing the scene building worksheet, and I had come up with a different way to present building scenes. Instead of protagonist, antagonist, conflict, setting, twist, which is kind of cerebral. It's kind of, people don't really look at that and go, oh my God, I get that. So I came up with those questions that we were using.
Yeah, and if you haven't listened to the episode and you want to know what the questions are, definitely go listen to the episode. It was a
Yes.
fun episode, and I know it helped quite a few people.
Yeah. So I went through and I went, you know what? Instead of using protagonist, antagonist, conflict, setting, twist in the lesson, I'm going to use those questions. And I built the worksheet in the lessons around those questions. And
Nice.
yes, and that is the biggest breakthrough I have had in ages in showing people, instead of telling them how to do this, in actually showing them this is how you get a scene and this is how you get the twist, which is the thing that has been throwing people for years. And
Yeah.
it was always just in the back of my head. But
Well, I think a lot of it is also, like we talked about before, how different people take different things that you say different ways, or how you can tell people something for years. And for me, it was like the concept of theme kind of was throwing me off until I don't know which course it was that clarified. How to revise your novel, the first time that I started taking it, years and years ago, the first time that I tried to go through it. But that really helped. It solidified it. And there's other things too. It's just like, why should your reader give a shit, basically, was one of the questions that threw me off for years. And my only answer was, I don't know, because they're not an asshole, you know? Like, but it's not like this huge overall, I was making too much of the question. Basically, it's a very simple question. What motivates your character? You know, kind of what about your character? Why does your reader like your character? Well, because he's this and he's that, and I mean it's not this philosophical question,
Right.
It's very easily answerable,
Right.
But it just takes the way you word it.
It does, and that's why going at things from so many different directions is so helpful. And that's why building a class with a live bunch of students taking the class just a lesson or two behind you makes the class better, is because all of a sudden you are seeing all of these different things through their eyes, and where they're getting stuck and they're saying, well, I don't understand this because this is what I'm trying to do. And you look at what they're trying to do, and they're showing me bits and pieces of I hate to call it homework, because homework has such a negative association
Because of the way school has
Yeah.
conditioned us. It's a bad word.
Yes, but they are showing me bits and pieces of their writing, and I'm able to look at what they're doing and say, oh, okay, well, I see why you're not getting the concept, and then I can reword it or give them a different process, or come up with an entirely new thing, like the little question and answer thing that we did for building scenes.
The scene building,
And
yeah.
all of a sudden, people who didn't get it from the way that I got it have it from this other way that I came at from a completely different direction. And that's pretty cool. And that's why I love Splinter's class. That was my week. Now let's get back to the topic of the day, which is fan fiction. And fan fiction has done some good things for people. It has done some bad things for people. It has, and you have a very deep personal relationship for this, because you started writing it, and writing a lot of it, when you were about 14 years old, and developed quite a fan base while you were writing it, which I think deserves to be mentioned. Is that you had a bunch of followers and people who were waiting for your next stuff to go up. So
yes.
So
cool.
Okay, so I have almost no experience with fanfic. I have one, and I realized this. Mine was, the kids and I were huge fans of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Never missed an episode.
That's not really fan fiction.
But it really.
It was writing to spec.
Well, it was writing to spec, yeah. But I was building. But it was totally fan fiction, because I was basing it off of the episode where the cave girl, the cave girl vampire slayer showed up. And
The first.
yeah, and I was doing a screenplay, and I still have that screenplay, by the way. And the first half of it, I got
We have to share it.
maybe we can. I don't know. But I had this. They had demonstrated that there could be, after the hard and fast Joss Whedon rule, that there could only be one vampire slayer. Then they demonstrated that there could in fact be two. And then they demonstrated with that cave girl that there could in fact be three.
But the way he broke his rules, I always liked.
Yeah.
I always thought, okay,
He did.
that is really smart. If you they say don't break your own rules, but if you can find out a way to go through, like if you can find the loophole
Yeah.
in your own laws, fucking go ahead and exploit that bitch.
Yeah, but I had come up with a way. I had come up with the reason, and the reason was heartbreaking and deep and rich and really beautiful, and that there could be multiple vampire slayers. And so I wanted to write this screenplay and send it to Joss Whedon because I was this huge fangirl who loved his show, and and I loved it so much. And then they came in about 3 episodes later while I was still writing the thing, and broke my possibility, so I stopped. But anyway, that was my fanfic, was that I loved that world so much, and I loved those characters so much, and I wanted to send my story to Joss Whedon.
You say it with this tone like I'm such a silly dope, but if you look, a lot of places accept teleplays. They accept things that, you know, and there's the Dead Zone. Mm-hmm. It was a television series based off of the Stephen King novel that had Michael Hall something. I don't know. He's the 80s Brat Pack star, one of the little dorky one. He was the main character in that, and they were looking for teleplays. And another thing that I ended up writing fan fiction for was that show, which I did not remember until you brought this stuff up, and I just mentioned the teleplays. But they were one of the shows that was seeking, teleplays and stuff from writers that weren't on their list. And I always think that that's pretty freaking amazing.
It is, actually.
When shows branch out and try to find people that aren't in their little area, that aren't with them, writing with them, or aren't other writers they know. Mm-hmm. They're trying to expand their own universe and their own world in ways that they can't think of because their brains aren't working that way right now.
Yeah.
So I always kind of wanted to give a shout out to places that do that, because I think that that's amazing.
It is. And had they not broken the story, I would have gone whole hog on it, man. It would have gone to Russ. Russ Galen was my agent at the time.
And this is why I say it's not a fan fiction.
Yeah. But it was written out of pure love of the show and the characters, and out of my desire to see them not frickin' break their world building. So I had an answer in how they could fucking fix it. And I wanted that. Oh my God, I love that story so much. Anyway, okay, but that is fan fiction. That is my experience with fan fiction. And you went way, way deeper into it and way richer into it than I did. So my first question for you is, why did you write fanfic?
Well, it's basically you're looking at. I started with original fiction when I was like about 11. I remember the very first book I attempted to write. We were still in Georgia, mm-hmm. and I was handwriting it, and I really wanted to write so badly, but I could never, as a kid especially, form these overarching stories, these big kind of ideas, because we would watch all these movies and we would watch all these TV shows, and they were so good, and I would read all of the books, any of the books. I don't know how many times, because we were not money when we were growing up, my brother and I, so we were definitely not money bags, so we had limited books. Like, that was one of the things that you always made sure we had, was we would go to Barnes and Noble, and we could pick out a book or two. Mm-hmm. That was amazing to us. So I ended up rereading a lot of those books many times, and I could see that my own writing, it wasn't working, and I would show it to you. And this is pre your teaching days. So you would tell me what was wrong with the writing, and you would ask questions like, okay, well, where is this going? Or what are you doing? But it wasn't teaching me quite what I needed. Again, I was very young. I remember the first time I showed you something that was really weird. It was somebody throwing up in a toilet and the toilet was talking to them. And I thought it was just so clever. But again, that was like, okay, well, what's the point of this? And I got really frustrated. Matt said, well, do you want her to help you? Do you want her to get you, help you get better? Or do you just want to be told how great you are? I was like, I want to get better. But yeah, so
it's actually, I found the answer to that actually, though, is both.
Yeah. I think a lot of people genuinely feel that they want both.
Of course.
There are some sadists out there that are going to jump on people like, the poor masochists of the world that are like, just tell me how bad I am so I can fix it. But, but yeah, and the idea for me, I think that looking back on it was I started at 14 when I started trying to write a little bit of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I think that was its first season that it was out. And I loved Oz and Willow. That was my thing. As the unfortunately the younger millennials say, that was my jam. Oh, and it's just, yeah, I loved Oz and Willow. So that was, I think I tried to get into that a little bit. And I remember I wrote one of the very first, I couldn't find any Buffy Spike, but I love Spike. And I wrote a Buffy Spike, but I never ended up sharing a lot of these. The thing about it was Joss Whedon, even in the first season, which was way more B-movie-ish, and I'm not saying I wrote Buffy Spike, because Spike wasn't even in there until the end of the first season or the second.
Yeah,
or the
he was later.
Season, something like that. Yeah. But you watch this stuff, and he has this way of showing bigger things, even with the comedy. If you watch a Joss Whedon episode and there's a lot of comedy, get ready to cry, because it's kind of like it's his rule that there's got to be some kind of balance. That the more you laugh, the more you're gonna hurt later.
Right.
So,
which is a good storytelling rule. He's really good at what he does. Really good.
Oh, he is fantastic at creating characters, at creating stories. And this is something else too. If you watch a story that is so impactful, so moving, and it could be TV, it could be books, it could be movies, but mostly it's TV that I'm talking about here, because there is always more than one writer. And if you get into the characters so deeply and it just everything grabs you, and you notice that there are other writers, that is probably a show that is going to be very good for creating fanfics, for creating people who create fan fiction, because and that's why I call it not fan fiction for what you did, but on spec writing, because you were a professional author creating a teleplay to submit through your agent. It's yours. Every writer that was on Joss Whedon's payroll was a fanfic writer in some way, as were you. But for the most part, you guys were professionals. Most fan fiction, to me, is a lot different. It's people that most likely are never going to have their fan fiction published. E.L. James. But it's just, if you're watching shows and you're moved in it, and you are finding yourself drawn to these stories, it makes it so much easier to teach you how to write. I learned how to do so much when it came to fan fiction. The reason I started going into it, the reason I started writing it, was because there were things in those in those shows that I felt that I couldn't yet make, that I couldn't yet create myself. Not everybody does this. Not everybody on the planet. There are tons of amazing writers out there who have never written fan fiction. Like you didn't write your first fan fiction until you were well in the game. So I'm definitely, I know that not everybody feels this way. But as a kid, and even somebody who's not a kid, it just depends on your level of ability of writing and everything. From my perspective, getting into fan fiction is incredibly helpful. A lot of people I know don't get into it to teach themselves. They get into it because they just love the show and they want to see more for their characters. That was the reason that I got so heavily into it, was because I saw missed opportunities, which is something that I wanted to mention.
That's a good reason. Okay. What is the very best experience you had writing fan fiction? That you're when you look back at it, you think, yes, that was my high point. That was my moment. That was the thing I loved the most in my fanfic. And that's a surprise question for you. You didn't tell me anything about that. I just wanted to know.
That's a hard one because for me, writing fan fiction is also kind of like writing original fiction when it comes to highs and lows. I continuously got better and I continuously grew and had a lot of people following me and trying to figure out where my stories were going. And with each story came different experiences. I had a story called Furious Angels where I was posting every day. And it was something like, and this was in the Clark and Lex from Smallville. I'm just laughing because I had already gotten kind of popular through writing. Oh, and by the way, if anybody wants to go see any of this stuff, it's almost all on fanfic.net. Or I think it's fanfic.net. Just look it up. I think they also go by ff.net. And it's Nymph Dupov. I'll definitely put this in the show notes because I know that's a pain in the ass. But it's NYMPH space DU space PAVE, like pave. And you can see all of the fan fiction I wrote years and years ago. And just as a side note as well, when you're looking at the reviews and you're looking like the numbers of reviews and responses and stuff, you have to remember that I think in 2001, which is when the fan fiction, which is when I submitted a lot of my work to fanfiction.net, because a lot of it was published like on LiveJournal or something else like that. I'd have to kind of corral everything. I know GeoCities, I had a page. A lot of the numbers that you're going to see look incredibly low. And they are in this world right now. You got to realize 2013, I believe it was a boon year for an explosion of the smartphone world and the number of adults and younger people on the internet. So you're looking at the viral sensations and everything like that. My stuff never went viral. My stuff was never even that huge in the fanfic world because I had such a very small niche. There was, when you're looking at slash fiction, especially nowadays, it's even more popular and it's less looked like frowned upon and looked down on. But at the time, it wasn't the biggest of the sections of fan fiction. A lot of the higher numbers of the fan fiction were the mostly the heterosexual couples and stuff, and what I wrote was more either MM or FF. Sometimes I might have had some. I think I wrote a couple that were a mixture of everything. When you're looking at the numbers on these pages, they seem low, but I think in 2001 you're looking at about 4 or 5, 6, 7% of the US or of the world population using the internet at the time, and that seems low. It seems low, but I will look up the numbers and I'll put them in the show notes. But it makes a very, very big difference when nowadays you look at just these very small YouTube channels or these very small popular Instagram accounts and stuff, and they're still getting like 1,000 likes or something on a single image, or 15,000 downloads of something, or likes and interactions on YouTube videos. The world wasn't like that in 2001. And so when you're looking at how small these numbers are, just remember it's a product of that time. But Furious Angels was the most fun and that was all pantsed. It was all based off of an episode in the very first season, where there were, and again, Smallville is how old?
It's been
It's
quite a few
gotta
years.
be, I was like 16 when it came out, so it's almost 20 years old. But yeah, so there was an episode, the first season, and where there's a character who cannot get warm. He has to kill people to warm his body because he fell into a frozen lake with kryptonite, which is what ends up making all of these bad guys. So I pantsed an entire thing where I was writing almost every single day. That's also when I got into the car accident, my very first car accident with my ex-boyfriend. And people, you could see, like, I was getting emails, people asking me where the next story was. And I mean emails. I mean, there was like 15 of them the next day. It was like 5, and then the next day it was 10, and it was like, holy shit, okay. So I actually ended up apologizing in the notes for the next one that I know I'm supposed to be posting this every day, but the interaction that I got with that, between the comments on each of the segments and the likes and the emails, that was pretty cool. And it's definitely it's definitely motivating.
God,
the
that
other
would be
story,
awesome.
yeah,
It would.
yeah, it's and this is something else that I wanted to get into later, but it's part of that drug-like feeling of fan fiction. The other things that I did that were on my top experiences were that I created a couple of stories that made people cry. Mostly in the Clark and Lex fandom, where people read them and they were just so moved. I can't remember the names of them, but there was also a longer book, Absolution, which was an absolute torture to my poor brother because I forced him to read it. If I remember it correctly, it was incredibly meta. It was very, no, that one wasn't the meta one. That was something else. Okay, so it was just incredibly introspective. Not much happened, and people loved it. And I'm not sure why, but I think a lot of it is because when you're watching these television programs, you can get away with things in fanfic that you couldn't get away with in original fiction because we don't get to see a lot of the inside world of Smallville, of the characters. So it's another way that while fan fiction teaches you good habits, it also teaches you bad habits. But yeah, there was a lot to that. But one thing that I wanted to say, I just wanted to cover a couple of things. This is taking the leap from fan fiction to original writing. So all of this discussion that we're having right now, this is just a basic kind of putting the ground down about fan fiction in the first place. Fan fiction is a great learning tool. It basically, it's teaching you how to write. If you, a lot of other things teach you how to write as well. So I'm not saying it's the only thing, but there's a lot in there that it can teach you how to write, and it can also be addicting because there is a built-in fan base. That was part of one of my favorite things about this was I was writing about things I loved and I was sharing it with other people and other people were finding it. I had a very, very weird coupling with Law and Order Special Victims Unit. I don't know what it was, but I just saw something between Detective Munch and Odafin Tutuola, which was really weird. Because Ice-T and Richard whatever, they're not the best looking dudes. But yeah, and I wrote some stories about it. They were just romantic, just kind of silly little romantic stories. And Mark was just absolutely floored that I found anybody that thought the same thing. That he said, "You got a like?" I was like, "I got a lot of likes." He came over and looked at it. He read the comments. He's like, I can't believe this. Other people, what? He just, and it's partially that is that you can find people that see the same things in these shows as you, and it gives you this kind of power because you're finding what excites you, what you're passionate about, both the good and the bad, and how to work inside these already pre-built characters and pre-built worlds, and you have the power to fix things that you didn't like Wash dying. Wash dying in Serenity, spoiler alert, but that was one thing that if I could fix, if I was still writing fan fiction, that wouldn't happen. There's sometimes there's things that are out of the creator's control, like if you're watching Hawaii Five-0, the fact that Jinho Kelly and Kono left. That was an actor dispute. That was a payment dispute, and it was understandable. But as a fan, those are huge characters. Their storylines, their entire, they've been there since day one. So that's something that you would be able to fix as a fan. You know, there are so many reasons for writing fan fiction, and there are so many good things that it does for you. And I just wanted to cover that because so many of us out there are fixing mixed opportunities, are seeing the romances that aren't there on screen, but that we want, that we feel like it would make something deeper.
Yeah, I love that. There are so many different things to go off of from what you said there. The biggest one, I think, being that it's something that I've been telling people about writing original fiction, is write what you love. Because no matter what you love, there's somebody else out there who loves that and who will want to write it. And if you don't write what's popular, because what's popular is what was popular last year or 2 years ago or however long ago it took the publishers to get that into the cycle. And
even if you can predict a trend, if it's not something that you love, you're gonna hate writing it. You're gonna hate writing. It's gonna dull your senses, dull your view on life. People who read it, even if they buy it, they
and
might
then
not
you
like
end up
it. It becomes repetitive.
Spending some of your productive years of writing life doing shit you hate and dulling your own creativity and destroying your connection between you and your muse, which is your right brain. Because once you have betrayed this part of yourself that loves something, and you have sold it out to chase somebody else's popular, it is sometimes very, very difficult for people to get that back. And some people never do.
Yeah, because you're telling yourself, no, that's a stupid idea. I need to write something that's going to make me money. No, your ideas are worthless. You're telling yourself all of these things, and society already tells you enough of that. So, stop telling yourself that, no, this idea won't sell. Who the fuck cares? Write it anyway. The time is going to pass. It's like, what is it going to hurt to invest in something that you love? Nothing. It's going to do nothing but help you emotionally. It's going to do nothing but help you mentally. It's going to help you grow. Even if it doesn't sell, even if you're just not at that point as a writer yet, or maybe it's not meant to sell. Even with fan fiction, if you are passionate about something,
yes, write what you love. Take a chance. Be brave. Now, there is another issue with fanfic, and I'm just going to throw this in as a Wikipedia link here. It is called the Marion Zimmer Bradley Fan Fiction Controversy. It is on Wikipedia. It covers the arguments. Now, I heard the Marion Zimmer Bradley story from Mercedes Lackey, who was like direct lineage from Marion Zimmer Bradley, in that she worked with C.J. Cherry. C.J. Cherry was the writer who most closely worked with Marion Zimmer Bradley. And there's this lineage of writers who kind of passed stuff on. And I was like the person who Mercedes Lackey worked with. And she kind of I spent like a couple of weeks with her in Tulsa, and she showed me what it was to have a writing career. I mean, it was a hell of an opportunity, and she was wonderful. And it was like, you don't give your agent shit. You treat your fans with respect. And
that's something else that you can talk about later.
Yeah, that's true.
We'll have to cover that in a different podcast, like your experience with cons and your experience with other writers, and because I know that's one that a lot of people would like to hear.
Yeah.
But as far as Marion Zimmer Bradley and the fan fiction problem,
There was, see, the story varies, and there is apparently no evidence of a fan suing her. But I think she might have been threatened with a lawsuit. So there are legal issues if you are writing fanfic, and there are legal issues if you are a writer whose work is being fanficked. And these are just some things that you need to be aware of. This is not, however, what I want the show to be about.
yeah,
But
but yeah, and that's one thing that I will note too, is that every single fan fiction piece I have ever written, as far as I can think, I put a disclaimer in there. I don't know these guys. I just like playing around with them. I kidnapped them. Whatever funny little teenage thing that, you know, my hormones told me to write. But it showed in there, like, this is the property of such and such.
Right.
And like Dick Wolf owns Law and Order. I can't believe I still remember that. I haven't seen any. Good Lord.
well, having skimmed the legalities there, because that's not what we're really here for.
Total skim.
Okay, so, and we have covered some of the downside of writing fanfic. Is there anything particular that you just want to focus on before we move to the next thing? Okay.
It's like a drug. It's absolutely like a drug. And there are good things about it that are so powerful that it's hard to break away. You've got that built-in fan base that I told you about.
Yes, seriously, I am envious of that.
Yeah. And as you absolutely could be, the thing is, though, not everybody's E.L. James. Not everybody is going to have this massive fan base and be able to tweak their work slightly by changing a few names and sell it. And the massive fan base can be amazing because it can be showing you all these things you're doing right. Getting the characters, getting inside the heads, getting the dialogues, creating something that's just funny. I hated songfics. Songfics is where you take the lyrics of a song and you put them in a fan fiction. I hated them until I listened to a particular version of what are you doing? No, it's Cold Outside. Baby, It's Cold Outside.
Oh, okay.
It was a super old version, and this was back when I was really, really just starting to get into 30s, 40s, 50s music. But it was pretty older version of it. It wasn't the very first one, but it was just so, the chemistry between the singers was there. And I was like, this is Clark and Lex. So I put it in a Clark and Lex story where Lex was the guy hitting on, and just FYI, Clark was always 18 in my stories. Just want to make that very clear. And Lex was always like 20, 21, 22. I tried to make their age difference very close and totally legal. I think there was at one point he was like 17 and Clark and Lex was like 20 or something like that, but it was legal in that state. Because when you're a teenager too, you don't think there's anything wrong necessarily with somebody just a little bit older than you.
Well,
but yeah, so yeah, because your hormones especially take over.
The hormones want what they want.
Yes, but because of our background, I was very, very much not, I was very clear. This is legal, folks. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so you have these guys, and Lex is trying to get Clark to stay, for obvious reasons, and Clark is like, I gotta go. And the funny thing is, I was able to tie in all of these cheesy lines, like, oh, my maiden aunt's mind is vicious, to the fact that Clark didn't have a freaking aunt. And people really, really responded to that songfic. And I hated writing songfic. So you can see where in here it pushes you to try new things. With the responses that you get on your writing, it is a drug because you are making people happy. You are not only making people happy, but you can see it almost instantaneously. Now, we only had 1 hour of internet a day. And this was back in the dial-up ages. So there was a reason for that.
That was a hard hour, man. That was strict, no
because
buffers. Yeah.
Mom had, like, if we didn't get up in time, we missed our internet hour, you know, and I had the first internet hour because Mark would sleep in. I think that was what it was. I don't remember. But so we only had an hour. That meant that I had the entire day that I was writing and doing other stuff, and then I would come back and there would be this slew of responses. It's even better than it is now, because now you can just keep going back and keep going back and keep checking. And oh, I got another one, and I got one here, and that's a little bit maybe more addictive. It's like that slot machine mentality. But when you are forcing yourself away from the work, when you have no opportunity to go see what people think, you just let it go and you keep writing, and then you come back the next day and you have all of this response. It is powerful, and it is detrimental to writing original fiction, because the odds are not great for getting huge responses like that, because you don't have a built-in fan base. Nobody knows who your characters are. They aren't already invested in the characters. They aren't already invested in the work. They have no motivation to find you out, look at your characters, and read your stories. The fact that you can write in all of these different worlds that are already pre-built, all of these characters are pre-built. Even when you're writing your own character, you're creating a character, especially if you read a lot of fan fiction and you learn how not to write Mary Sue's, because I believe my first one was kind of Mary Sue-ish, but it wasn't as bad as I've seen. It teaches you how to create better characters within a pre-built world. But then when you get into writing original fiction, you feel lost. You feel almost empty. And that's scary, horrifying, depressing, because you're sitting there knowing that you are freaking capable of creating these reactions in people, but doubting that you are creative enough to come up with something by yourself. And there is this huge draw to keep going back.
And I would like to note here, as someone who started with commercial fiction, that my experience was you write the book, you send it off. It takes a year from the time it's accepted, revised, edited, and then goes back in. It's then about a year before the book comes out, followed by this long, deathly nothing in which nobody says anything. And then the handful of people who will actually take the time to write a letter and put a stamp on it and send it to the publisher, who will then forward it to you with a bunch of other stuff, or a handful of other stuff, because, you know, it's your first novel. Did you get maybe 3 or 4 letters a year and a half later? If that longer. If that, if you ever get anything, because a lot of stuff people don't, it's so extraordinary for someone to actually look in the front of the book, find the publisher's address, write a fan letter, send it to the publisher, who will then send it to you after opening it to make sure there's nothing dangerous in it.
Because it's not easy. It's absolutely. I mean, you're looking at something that is, people, you have to have moved them that much, and then they have to remember, I've been moved by a ton of stuff and I wanted to write the authors. Did I remember? No, I don't even remember making coffee this morning, and I know I did it because it's right in front of me. But these books, the people who write you, the percentage that actually get them out is so small. Yeah. That's why I was mentioning how the response is a drug.
So that's why
I
saw
your experience.
Right. And that's why I'm sitting here listening to you recounting this thing and remembering, God, I was envious, because you had that instant feedback where instantly you knew that what you were doing was hitting somebody and doing it right. Yeah. That you were connecting with real readers, which is a huge part of why we do this. But it's just so hard when you're doing it commercially. It is just...
When you're doing it with original fiction, even nowadays, when you have more of an instant gratification because of online.
Right, and because of indie publishing.
Yeah, indie publishing. it also has made it a lot easier for people to freaking contact you. You have your social media information, you have your emails, you have a way for them to get you, which does not take this huge amount of effort or time to remember for them. They can literally just pop on, oh, hey, I just finished this book. Look, he's on Instagram. Hey, I liked your book. Done. Twitter. Hey, that was a great book. Done. So you might get less meaningful stuff out of it because somebody's not taking a lot of time and effort to do something. But yeah, I remember us sitting and writing when we did our writers groups. I think we were only focusing on original fiction at that time. And Mark was writing a horror screenplay and I was writing a romance novel. And we started off just talking, and Mark was complaining to me because of how many likes I got on a story that made him cry. I remember this very vividly. And we were talking about it, and he was mocking me, but also like I mocked him, and then you were like, I don't remember exactly what you said. I just remember the vivid disagreement between me and Mark because that was our life. But you mentioned that this was one of the only times as a kid that I remember feeling this way, but that you were envious of something that I had gotten, you know, and it made me feel good, but it also made me feel kind of bad. Like, I wish you could write fan fiction and get paid, Mom. You know, it was like, because I was getting such these massive responses. I still get 1 or 2 likes weekly from stuff that I wrote almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, when you were a young teenager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, again, it's a drug because a lot of it is that fan base. And it's not like you want to write for attention. It's not like you want to write to get that feedback. You're writing something, but knowing through that feedback that you are touching people, that you are making something that moves them. I made a very deep friendship with somebody. His name online was Escape to City. I'm not going to say his real name, but he was a writer friend of mine. We both wrote very deep stuff, and he was a gay guy in the late 90s. And it was very, very difficult for him. And a lot of my work meant so much to him that he friended me, and he would tell me what these different things were, and he couldn't believe I was a girl, you know. But my thing is, if love is love, and I think a lot of what drew to me was the tabooness of it, but not in a sexy way, more in a this shouldn't be like this way. And that appealed to him, and we were friends, and his stuff was amazing. It made me cry so badly because it was so moving and so deep and loss. There was just so much loss. And I was 22, and I got an email from a sheriff, and I thought it was a scam. I thought it was fake. He had died in an apparent suicide.
Oh, God.
I still remember, I still have the date marked on my calendar. It just, to know that it was so rough, but I hate for him that he didn't have what he didn't what he needed.
On. Yeah. That just, I mean, maybe a few more years.
Yeah. And I wish so hard that he could have, that I maybe would have tried a little bit harder to keep in touch, because if he just had one more voice saying you matter, maybe it would have made a difference. I don't know. But I'm telling everybody out there right now, you matter.
Yes. Okay.
So we had never met, and I still cry, and it's been 13 years? Aww. I'm fighting back tears now.
Yeah.
I never met the guy. I read a couple of his stories, and he moved me so much just through fan fiction. And again, feedback, that kind of thing, touching each other through our fan fiction, not perverted touching.
No, but just that human connection.
Yeah.
Of somebody else
human
out
connection.
There. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the perfect way to put it. And that is a problem with fan fiction, is that it's more meaningful when somebody is touched by your work as an original writer, because I've actually had people be touched by my original fiction. Like you really, really loved Leaving Wanda Lucia.
Yeah, I did.
And that mattered so much. But it's easier to write fan fiction and to get a response out of fan fiction.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. That was a really, really fine answer. So what we're looking at here, and really the point of this episode, is how do you move from writing fan fiction to writing original fiction? And as somebody who has had to do this,
Yeah.
you are a good person to ask. How do you do this?
Now, it might be different from for other people. You know, I'm not going to say that you have to go 100% cold turkey. I'm not going to say that, you know, you have to do a little bit more original fiction and keep writing fan fiction. Whatever works for you. But you have to, if your goal is to break away, because a lot of people will write fan fiction for the rest of their lives and be perfectly happy. And if that is what you are doing, if that is what is making you happy, do it. If you're not writing to write original fiction, if you just love writing fan fiction, don't let anybody shit all over you and tell you, oh, you should be writing original fiction. I have told friends that because I love them and I see them writing and they're enjoying themselves. And I think that, you know, they could write fan fiction. I think that, or original fiction. I think could is a much better word. And I apologize to anybody who I've ever said you should be writing original fiction, because I've learned the stupidness of the word should. But if your goal is to stay in fan fiction and keep writing it, go for it. If your goal is to break away, I can try to help. It was very, very difficult, but I finally figured out how to dissect my addiction to fan fiction and supplement it and move on, kind of like taking that, what is that stuff they give to heroin addicts?
You know, offhand? Methadone. Yes. Very good.
Because I know that it starts with meth. Because I don't know why, but we get a lot of meth places if you live in rural areas, by the way, so be careful about that. But yeah, so it's like it's kind of like maybe taking methadone. You want to find out what you love about the world you're writing in, about the characters you love. Why do you love them? What kind of conflicts do you prefer to write about? What are the characteristics of the characters maybe that speak to you? I know that you loved House.
Yep.
So explain in just a couple of words what it is about House, the character that you loved.
I loved the fact that he was appreciated for being brilliant, that he was he had gone through a horrible thing that had left him permanently physically disabled, that destroyed a part of his body, and that he had, it left him in constant pain. And yet he was this brilliant physician who didn't like people very much, but who was dedicated to the concept of fixing things and fixing what was broken in these other people, though he could not do this for himself. And there was this connection that I felt to him, just from some areas of my own life that I'm not going to get into here. But he was, to me, a very human and very real person, and I loved him. I wanted to bring, I wanted to see more of that in the world.
Yeah. So looking at it from your perspective, you like that he was a brilliant man who went through a trauma, who did not like people, but was devoted to his purpose of healing.
Right.
Okay. So those are the kind of things that you would look for in wanting to create that character. To me, things about House that stand out are the permanent damage to his leg that quite possibly later on in the season was mental, or series was more of a mental thing, which I wasn't crazy about.
No.
He was addicted to painkillers. There's just a whole bunch of little things that you can pull out of that character. If you are a fanfic writer of House, or if you just love that particular character, find out why. Like Mom just did, like Holly just sat there and put everything out. Dissect it yourself. Find why you love a particular character, a particular world. What genre do you like? What themes are you finding? Redemption was a huge one in Buffy. huge, all over the place.
Yeah.
And
I think that
there-
was the thing with Spike.
yeah,
There was
well,
always
with
this.
Spike, with Angel, with Darla eventually, with the baby. I mean, redemption was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Even Buffy in the end.
Yeah.
It's everybody found Willow after her drug addiction to magic. There's all of these little things, but you can start to look at, especially if the show goes on for seasons, and pick out what it is that you really love. And write all of this down. Please do not just leave it in your head. Get a notebook. And just if you're watching a TV show that you're writing fan fiction for and something is in there, write it down. Write, oh, I love this. I love this. It can take a little bit of time. It's not a sit down and go through it for 5 minutes and find out what you love about something. It took me years, I think 2 or 3 years, to fully and completely break away from fan fiction. And like I said, when I get depressed in my own personal life, nothing to do with writing necessarily, I find myself leaning towards writing more fan fiction. But I think I'm past that at this point. Not to say that I will never write something funny or write some piece of fan fiction that I feel needs to be written, but it's just, it can take a while. Be patient with yourself. Understand that the time in your life is going to pass anyway, and if you are taking steps towards breaking away, if you are taking steps towards writing original fiction, that's enough. That is enough, and just keep going. And it's finding out what you love from the shows that you watch can take time. So just keep your pen and notebook with you. If there's a particular episode that just freaking moved you all over the place, dissect that episode. These are the things where you're finding out what matters to you. Something that is huge in Holly's courses and huge in Holly's entire, entire career online as a teacher. This is basically you doing this in your fan fiction because you don't know what to write original. If you're somebody who is like me, you're at a loss of what to write originally because you're stuck mentally in that zone. Your muse is stuck in that zone of already having pre-built worlds and pre-built characters to work within. So start breaking away from that. Give your muse these little toys to play with. And a way to ease in to doing this, if you're still stuck, if you're trying to write down all the ideas but you can't really formulate things in your head as far as a new idea, write a story idea down that you would normally write as a fan fiction, the same characters, the same world, the same magic, the same rules. Then start, after the idea is down, something that you would definitely write as a fanfic author, then change the stuff. Change the characters, change the situation. You don't have to change it entirely. Just tweak it. Just make something a little bit different. Change a rule. Change something about a character. Make the character not the opposite, because you still want to write something that you're loving, but alter the character in a way that is a huge difference, but not something that compromises the reason you would write it in the first place.
That's nice. Yeah, that is very, very good. Okay.
Oh, now you had you had shared something on YouTube.
Yeah, that's true.
That might help people with breaking free from fan fiction.
Right. It was a little mini live episode with a tiny bit of workshop to it that I did on my How to Write a Novel class, where I was answering questions about making an artifact. And the artifact is a way to get past people's muses when they're blocked. Or to get to their muses past their left brain editor when they're blocked, where you create this item and then you dissect the item and you take it, you see how that item fits into a world. And it gives you your characters, your conflicts, just a bunch of different stuff. And that is it's a kind of funky, the sound is funky. It is a video.
Yeah,
it's available on YouTube. And I'm still having issues with my YouTube
Yeah,
sound,
we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
But that fits perfectly in with the not just the easing in. Like if you create that fan fiction story idea and start to change it, and you can add your own artifact and create something like that.
Right.
But it also works if you found out what it is that you love from these fan fiction things, and you can't really figure out something that would fit. But I would say, let's say, creating a piece, and this is a backwards leap here. It's actually going into a story, but the Witches of East Bend or West Bend,
Eastwick.
East Bend. No,
No? Oh, okay.
Witches of Eastwick is a film. This is
Okay.
a really good film.
Okay.
But this is a TV show. I just don't remember the name, but I'll have it in the show notes.
Okay.
It was the first episode I wasn't crazy about. It was really hard to get through, but it was a fantastic show. It was about 4 witches. It was a mother, an aunt. The mother is lives for eternity. The aunt has 9 lives and is a cat sometimes. She's like a shapeshifter.
Okay.
And the mother has 2 daughters, Thea, and I don't remember the other name. But I love Thea. I love that name. But yeah, so she has these 2 kids, and they are destined to die and be reborn. Die and be reborn. Sometimes they remember it is an amazing show because it shows how much she goes through. She is living in eternity. They are cursed. She is living in an eternity where she has to continuously have these children and see them die.
Oh my God.
Both of them. And if one of them dies, immediately the other one's going down. It's just a matter of a few hours, basically.
Oh.
Yeah. But the reason I bring this up is you could have created that entire world based off of an artifact. And
Right.
the artifact isn't even that integral to the main stories. What it is it's a necklace, and it's a green necklace, and the aunt wears it. And the necklace is part of her, like when she turns into a cat, it's a collar. It's basically like a counter, and you don't really realize it, but they keep mentioning it every now and then. It's very subtle. When she dies her 8th death, and she is now on her last life, the necklace has changed to red. And they mention it, and then you realize, oh. Ooh. So that is an artifact that could have built an entire world. It's a simple artifact. Mm-hmm. It's only one part of a massive show with massive amounts of world building and little bits and pieces here and there. That, again, a show that was canceled too early. So that's a good one for fanfic writers. Uh-huh. But it's just that goes into Holly's article thing or artifact thing. So if you are still a little bit lost and you don't know how to build the world, try going to that YouTube video. Try listening and building your own artifact and seeing what it tells you about the world.
Right. So that just another little bit of help we're throwing in here. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I have one more weird question for you before we get to the takeaway.
Yeah.
And this is there anything that you really miss from doing this? From writing fanfic? I mean, to the point that you genuinely miss it.
The interaction.
I can see that.
Yeah. And I think I made it very clear earlier that was a huge part of the draw for me.
Yeah.
Was not everybody's going to be Stephanie Meyer, J.K. Rowling, E.L. James, because even there was a lot of negative to that book. There was a lot of people that responded in a positive way too. Not everybody's going to be J.K. Rowling, where you have this amazing interaction, and while it might have stilted her future writing, which is a shame because I would love to see what else she could put up if she wasn't stuck within that typecasting and the part of her brain that is fearful. But, and again, that's just an assumption that that's where she is, but being a writer, I understand. And also can't fathom that kind of response. But it's something that your original fiction, even writing it, you're like, I hope I touch people the way that I did when I was writing fan fiction. And I'm not looking at that as my glory days, like some high school footballers I know they do, like Napoleon Dynamite, his uncle. But you're looking at the response isn't the ones I that touched me weren't, oh my God, this is amazing, you know, or I love your work. Those were very sweet. I like that. Anybody would.
Right.
But the ones that touched me were like my friendship to Escape the City, my friendship to, and I cannot believe I forgot his username, but he used to beta read for me for the longest time. And as a matter of fact, 2 of my beta readers I met when I was 19 writing fan fiction. I have a friend named Barbara who I believe is still a writer. She is my friend on Facebook to this day, and I met her when I was like 16 or 17. And I actually physically met her in person when I was 19 or 20 with my ex-boyfriend. And that is meaningful to me.
Yeah.
I know that my writing touched them in a way that they wanted to be, you know, a part of my life in any small way. Not to make it, you know, you don't want creepy stalker people, but
No,
but you being able to touch people with my themes within any kind of story is the point of writing. So with fan fiction, it just made it that much easier.
yeah, that's for me. I haven't done cons in years. We have a lot of reasons for not doing them, but I miss them because that was my chance right there to actually face to face. You know, when you're signing somebody's book, you take a minute and you get to stop and talk to them, and you get to know a little bit about them as a person and understand that, yeah, this is where we connected. This story, this one book that they want me to sign, because it meant something special to them, and it meant something special to me when I wrote it, because if it hadn't, I wouldn't have written it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Somebody who, and that's why I say that's probably more impactful, because that was something created from your mind that meant something for you, that was not a fan fiction. Every bit of it was original. So you're not stuck with that doubt in my head, or in your head, of did they like it because of what I put into it, or did they just like what I put into it, but they loved the fact that it was the same story that everybody else loves, the same characters, the same world. You have people coming to you because everything on your page was original and it moved them. That is massive.
It was.
And that is what drives me to get my original stuff out there, because I don't necessarily see myself getting super famous, super popular, nothing like that. I don't necessarily, I don't even want huge J.K. Rowling fame or anything like that. That terrifies me. What I want to do is be able to move people with my original work, like you have.
Yeah.
You know, to make a difference in somebody's life with what you've written down, and to do it with my worlds, my characters.
Yeah, to have no doubt that
Yeah,
what you
no
wrote,
doubt. Yeah.
that's because that was something that was in fact very nice, was that I knew that was my stuff.
You had no reason to doubt it either, that these people loved what you created.
Yeah, and that was big. That was, oh yeah, that was so fun. And I'd say even now, getting emails from folks, and you know, there or comments on my blog, on my website, or you know, any of that matters to me, and I read them. I read every single one. I read all the emails. I can't always answer because I get a lot of emails, and but I, you know, and the really, really cool ones I save, always just save, print them off. I've got them printed in a little file. And I get a little teary-eyed here. Anyway, yeah. Damn.
So when it comes to the motivation for writing original fiction, just realize that my mom is crying right now because of how much it means to her fans. So that is...
And how much knowing that I was able to give them something that helped sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, because people like my friend Escape to City are out there. And I think that I already know of one person who you've helped with your books find a better path. So I just want to reiterate that, you matter. Everybody listening, don't think that you don't get the help that you need. Reach out. You do matter. And if there's something that moves you in a book, take a few seconds to let the author know, because it's it might not be what motivates them to write, but it is something that the authors, it's a very solitary job. You're by yourself. A lot of us don't have people that we can talk to about our writing. Mom and I are very lucky that we have each other, but many people don't have a spouse or family. They're winging it. They didn't grow up with a mom who was a writer. They are the sole person there. So if they get something in email or on Twitter, something tiny that says, "I love what you did," that's going to be massive. So, take 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously. Because the road goes both ways, and the people who are writing this are writing out of their own lives and out of their own experiences. And sometimes it really helps to know that what you put into the book connected with just one person, man.
Yeah.
If down the road, and I am asking this to you as the listener, if somewhere down the road you knew that something you wrote in fiction now would make someone else's life better, would pull them out of some horrible situation that they were in, and give them a second chance, would you take it? And if you never heard anything else from anyone else, but you heard from that one person, would that matter to you? And for me, there is simply no doubt. That has happened to me a few times, and it matters. It matters, and it mattered enough that I wrote back to them and I said, "Look, I'm really glad you found in the book what I put in that book for someone to find." And yeah, and you are stronger than you think you are. You are more talented than you think you are. You have more in you than you have any idea yet right now that you have. And as a person, if you are writing, you are already somewhat introspective. You are already looking at the value of your own existence. You have at some point questioned why you're here. Just know that there are people out there who don't have anyone right now like you to talk to. And if you write your book, you will give them someone.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Somebody that they can see understands what they feel.
Right. Right. And that's, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's actually exactly the first part of the takeaway too, is that remember, you're not bad at this.
Right.
And that's you're stronger, like what Mama was saying, you're stronger than you think you are. You're more talented than you think you are, or more, let's use the word skilled. I'll use the word skilled because talent has a negative association to it, that you have to
right, that it's some sort of freaking
person.
gift and not something that you had to earn.
Yeah. And while I'm sure some people were born with specific predilections, I don't feel that anything is a gift. I feel like, especially when it comes to writing, or drawing, that start early enough. Yeah, it looks like a gift, but yeah. So the first part of that takeaway is you're not bad at this. Every time that we want more in life, we have to break through to earn it. If you want a promotion at work, you can't just sit there and half-ass your job. You have to work hard. Now, obviously, that isn't always true. Sometimes people kiss people's asses. Sometimes nepotism is involved. But in a world where it's supposed to work the way that, scientifically, to get a better position with more money, you should be a better worker. So it's the same thing with art. If I wanted to be a better artist than I was in 2016, I had to make art. And I had to make a lot of it in order to progress and get better. And it was freaking hard. It was a lot of work and a lot of frustration, a lot of sweat and tears. Yes, tears. But I got there, And it's the same thing with writing. Fan fiction and breaking away is it's a skill to break away. Original fiction is a completely different animal, but it's in the same species. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know how to say it, but it's like you're looking at a house cat, and then you're looking at a lion. That lion could eat that house cat. so it's there. It's a lot bigger. It's a lot harder, but it's doable, and you're not bad at it. You just haven't worked enough on it to get there. So keep working. Overcoming those obstacles is part of the deal in order to break through.
Yeah. Part of the price you pay for being alive is the struggle you have to get to make it count. Or you have to get through to make it count.
So if as far as the takeaway, other than, remember, it's going to take time. You're not bad at this. You're just somewhat newer at it. Fan fiction is like training wheels. Just remember, it's you've used it for a while. And again, this is just speaking to people that want to break away from fan fiction and write original fiction. Be appreciative of what fan fiction did for you. You can always love it. I will always love what I have written for these shows. I had so much that I didn't even ever publish, and if I found it, I would definitely put it up on my site just as this is also what I wrote. There was a huge love for that part of my life, and I do not regret it. So you can acknowledge that part of you and keep it there and still love it and still be happy and motivated by it and still move on from it. Connect with what you love about these stories. Dissect everything and find out what it is that is moving you to write this fan fiction and start creating your own versions. Know that it's not going to work immediately for everybody. For most people, it's going to take time, effort. But again, you're investing in yourself. You're investing in your writing. And then build from that. Build from what you have dissected into your own original stuff. Ease in if you need to. Remember, the easing in was write the story idea that you would write as a fanfic author. Not write the entire story, just write down the idea. Beginning, middle, end, all the little things that you would put in there as the fan fiction writer, and then start changing all the things to make it original. Go on YouTube and watch Mom's video on the artifact if you need to. Find out how you can create an entire world from an artifact, or characters from an artifact, or conflict from an artifact. But ease in if you need to. I strongly suggest that you do that if you're having a problem. It's not cheating. It is a tool. And then just keep trying and learning from everything you can. And you keep getting better and better and better. And if you don't see it, believe me, it's there. You can go on Holly's forums at hollyswritingclasses.com. Again, they're free forums. You sign in, you get the free How to Write Flash Fiction That Doesn't Suck course. And you can start with original fiction with flash fiction, by the way. But just
which is free.
Yeah. Just keep trying and learning and keep at it. It took me 2 or 3 years until I was not pulled in by the draw of the easy fan fiction stuff. And you can do both, but I'm telling you right now, my personal experience of writing both made it harder for me to cut ties with fan fiction and get fully into original work. Because at that point, you have 2 feet in two completely different, it's like the states, like you're on the state border. You're not fully in one place. So your brain is pulled in two different directions, where there's this easy world that's already done, and then there's this difficult world. And your brain, writing fan fiction and writing original fiction, use different parts of your muse, use different parts of your brain, use different parts of your logic. So if you're doing both, it can be very, very difficult, and you're not going to get the best results on either end. I think that's probably it.
Yeah, no, that is beautiful. Thank you. That made it really clear for me. And since this isn't something that I grew up with or worked with, it was really helpful to hear you go through the differences and being torn between those two worlds. Okay, so in my temporary job as host, I am now going to wrap us up. We are still offering ebooks for iTunes reviews. And thank you for everyone who has so far taken advantage of this offer. If you love what we're doing here and you want to share that, we want to show you our appreciation. We have both of our stories in there. So what you do is you leave us a review on iTunes, and then you email us at show at SHOW at alonewithinvisiblepeople.com, and let us know you left us a review and the username you left it with, and we'll verify it, and then we will email you our books. And mine is Squick Studies, which is set in settled space, and Becca's is Good Bones, which is a short paranormal story. You can follow us on the socials, and I would really appreciate it if you do. We are at AIARWIP on Twitter and Instagram, and search for either hashtag Alone with Invisible People or Alone in a Room with Invisible People. We're on Facebook as well. That's Alone in a Room with Invisible People. And you can comment on our blog at alonewithinvisiblepeople.com. But if you want to get into the conversations or have something you want us to put out there, join the forums at hollyswritingclasses.com. They are free. We have the airwhip or Alone in a Room with Invisible People forum is towards the top of the free forums, and you sign up and you have it instantly. And look for the podcast forum and just join in with the conversations and talk to us and ask questions, and let us know if there's an episode that you want, because that's what we're here for.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say something too that I completely forgot, but we definitely want to give a shout out to my friend, Brian Finizzi.
Oh God, the shirts!
Yes.
Oh my
yes,
God!
We have our first bit of fan, I don't know what you would call it, fan memorabilia, fan what? Fan like...
fan awesomeness.
Fan awesomeness, fan gifts. My friend Brian had a friend of his that he's known forever make shirts for us, because we were talking about paper people, and mom said paper people suck, and I said I want that in a shirt, and then we talked about it in the next episode, and she said, yeah, I want that shirt too, and we were just saying I want everything on a shirt, honestly. So it's like I always say that. I'm actually designing shirts, gaming shirts right now, because it's just I want everything on a shirt. So yeah, so then I get this message asking us what our shirt sizes were. I thought he was possibly making an Airwhip shirt. Something like this with our logo or something like that. And then he sends me the picture, and it is a red women's V-neck tee, which is freaking perfect.
It is.
And it's got this cute little paper stick figure almost. And it says paper people suck, and it looks like the Serenity font, by the way, which I love. But it's just, I am so freaking excited. Yes,
and Becky has both of them, so I'm waiting for mine to show up.
Oh, I don't have them yet. Because I was supposed to meet them yesterday. There was a birthday batch, but the Clomid After Effects are still running through my system.
I'm sorry.
And yeah, it sucks because Tony literally took the day off so that we could go hang out with them and go to the birthday bash. But I physically could not make it.
Yeah, well, it's nausea and everything. That's not fun.
Well, and there's this weird thing that it does to my body where it makes it feel on edge all the time. It's really weird. I have to write all this down for people. But yeah, I just thank you so much. And as soon as we get them, I'm going to have Mom take a picture or Matt take a picture of you. And I'm going to have a picture of me, and we're going to definitely put them on the blog. I'm so excited to get them. I'm like hyper excited. I can't wait.
I just think that's so cool. Yes. So thank you. Thank you so much for making those. That was just so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess that's it. Yes.
Okay, cool. So yeah. I guess I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. Big thing. If you have any questions, if you have any want for any descriptions or examples of breaking away from fan fiction, anything, if there's anything that you feel I didn't cover in this topic, ask away, especially in the forums, because we have a couple of mini episodes that we need to film coming up soon. And we are looking for your questions, and it doesn't have to be on fan fiction. It can be on anything else.
Right.
But we are looking for your questions so that we can do a couple of mini episodes touching on your questions. So, we'll just look for those during the holidays. I think we're going to have more mini episodes during the holidays. So we still get something to you, but we won't have a whole bunch of time.
It'll be a little short stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well,
so yeah.
then I'm going to say goodbye, and as our guest, you get the last goodbye on this.
Oh, is that how it's supposed to work?
That's how it works.
Damn. Okay. Well, thank you so much for bringing this topic up. Thank you so much for letting us know that this was important to you, and if there is, anything that you need, we will be on the forums. Thank you for listening. And now, a word from our sponsor.
You want to write? You love words, you love fiction, but you don't know where to start or how to middle or where to finish? I do. I'm Holly Lyle, and I've been doing this professionally since 1991. And I know how I did what I did to go pro, and I'll be happy to show you what I've learned. Start with my free 3-week flash fiction class at hollyswritingclasses.com.